When it comes to TV shows, all of us want to go and watch something that is good. And sometimes there are shows we miss out on for one reason or another. And then those shows become a part of our lives afterwards, and we wish we had been around there since day one. But there are other shows that you look at and go, what was all the hype about? So, with streaming services having full series and people wanting to catch up on what they missed, allow us to show you 6 TV series that are actually worth the hype. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 6. Superman and Lois. It may seem odd that we're starting off with a show that hasn't even finished its first season yet, due to poor timing, production delays due to COVID, and something called the Olympics. But it's undeniable that Superman and Lois is not just one of the best new shows on TV right now, it's arguably one of the best superhero series ever made. Which is, again, ironic because it hasn't even finished its first season yet. But it showcases enough in the first set of episodes to prove just how good it is. We've all seen various Superman shows in live action before, from the original Superman show, to the adventures of Lois and Clark, and of course Smallville. But what makes this show different is that it takes place in a timeline where Lois and Clark are married, have 2 kids, and are dealing with major changes in their world via job loss, their kids maybe having powers, and more. The focus on family is beautiful, and many argue that this is one of the best interpretations of not just Superman, but Lois Lane, who is more than past iterations of her by being not just a great mom, but a strong reporter looking for the truth and more. The show also has a great set of young actors in Jonathan and Jordan, as well as a good supporting cast with the family of Lana Lang. They address a lot of heavy issues in here, while only rarely going the CW way as past shows have done before them. It also should be noted that the series was renewed for a second season after just 1 episode. So yeah, clearly it did something right. Number 5. Game of Thrones. Okay, yes, we know. The final season of Game of Thrones wasn't exactly the best thing ever, in a whole variety of ways that we could do a whole other video on. But let's focus on everything pre-Season 8. You could even go pre-Season 7 should you so choose. Because make no mistake, Game of Thrones went from being a new HBO show to being the most talked about show in television at the time. And there were other shows fighting for your attention, to be clear. But what set this show apart? The cast, the clearly massive budget that allowed them to do various things that other shows on this list would have struggled to do, and a willingness to let the show be like the material from George R.R. Martin. Granted, they did change certain things, especially when they ran out of material to pull from, but they did their best to stick to the material presented. And most agree that when it went off book, the quality fell. But even then, the final season was one of the most hyped things in the history of television. That's why so many were mad when it fell flat on its face. But for 6 glorious seasons, this was the most important show around, and that says something. Number 4. Sherlock. There have been many interpretations of Sherlock Holmes over the many decades of his existence. But the BBC series Sherlock dared to be different in not just its setting, the modern day, but also the very format of the show. Every season was just 3 episodes, bold even by today's streaming service standards. Each episode was its own mini-movie detailing the cases of Sherlock and Watson as they tried to navigate the world of crime and all the faces that it brought to them. This was the show that launched the career of Benedict Cumberbatch, as well as Martin Freeman. Their acting and chemistry on the show was incredible, and the twists that the show did with the characters, both good and bad, made for incredible viewing. Season 4 is a bit divisive, and many doubt that Season 5 will ever happen, but if it does, you can expect a lot of fans to be there waiting for it to arrive. Number 3. Breaking Bad. Nothing stops this train. But believe us when we say that no one could have seen where this train was going, because Breaking Bad was a show that came out of nowhere and dominated the airways for multiple seasons. Sure, it wasn't always the most consistent, and many would argue what were the best episodes. But make no mistake, this show was deep, dark, menacing, had twists out the wazoo, and made you feel for almost every character out there. The tale of Walter White going from a basic chemistry teacher to someone who was awake and wanted to do more with his life? Finding an old student and becoming a drug kingpin was something no one knew they wanted to watch, but couldn't help but watch when they saw it happen. This show was grit personified, and the performances from Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, Dean Norris, and more made you wonder from episode to episode what was going to happen next. It was so big, it not only got an epilogue movie via El Camino, but also got a spin-off prequel series via Better Call Saul, which some would say is just as good as Breaking Bad. So, say his name. Number 2. The West Wing. While many would say that Breaking Bad is the best show of the recent era, especially given what happened at the end of Game of Thrones, The West Wing is often hailed as one of the best written and best acted series of all time, if not the best show of all time. Which is hilarious because it's about politics. At the time, The West Wing was something unique, a deep dive into what it was like for the president and his closest staff to go and navigate the world of politics and try and change the world for the better. What it became was a masterclass of storytelling from top to bottom, with each character having deep arcs and massive storylines that would take multiple seasons to unfold, in a good way. And as well as an unapologetic look at how sometimes trying to do the right thing just isn't enough. Martin Sheen, Allison Janney, Richard Schiff, Dual Hill, and more rooted this series in reality, and knew when to have fun and when to be serious. While the later seasons aren't as beloved, due to a showrunner departure, it still was clear that this was a special show from start to finish. What are you thinking about? Tomorrow. Number 1. MASH. Don't be mad if you don't remember MASH, because it was a show from the 70s and early 80s, and it may not be something you watch now in your regular routine. But once upon a time, this was not only the biggest show around, it was the best show around, and it still lives up to that hype today. MASH was set during the Korean War, and focused on a medical unit whose job was patching up all who came through. Believe it or not, it was meant to be a comedy series, kind of poking fun at war and all that came with it. But the cast and crew knew that they could never be afraid to show the dark side of war, the mental and physical toll it took on all in it, and how one could be affected long term. The show was almost canceled in its first season, but it was allowed to continue, and with each new season, it got bigger and better. Even when beloved characters were swapped out or even killed off. Rip Henry. The show kept the momentum going until its massive finale. A finale so huge, they made a TV movie out of it via Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. And it had the biggest TV ratings in history. Period. And it held that record until the Super Bowl beat it out decades later. But no singular TV show in a non-sports or news format has beaten MASH, and that says a lot for what this show was. So, what do you think of this look at the TV shows that definitely lived up to the hype in one form or another? Were you one who went and watched all of these shows from the beginning, or did you fall into them later in their runs? Which one of these shows are you interested in trying out now? Let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.